Well, that's nice.
Yeah, Jacob specifically. We're dropping off food for them, Jacob and Tom. And it's like, is there anything else you need? Are you short on groceries? And he was like, we have everything except some cheese. And I was like, oh no, I'm coming to your house. I'm giving you cheese.
I'm giving you cheese.
No friend of mine will
Jacob.
be short on cheese. That's not that won't fly.
I do indeed. So we are streaming right now.
Great.
Waiting for our friends. You hear Crystal.
I love hearing Crystal.
Well, I mean, I do too, but on Mondays, not on Thursdays.
Well, so since I started showing up on Monday and saying nice things about her, she's trying to get her revenge by showing up and saying nice things about me.
That is a great war to have.
I'll lose. Live video interrupted.
Apologies to our friends. Okay, great. I need to work with some of my beloved friends who are helping me with audio. They're like, yep, I hear you. Bye. Hello, everyone. Hello. I feel like I might be blasting loud, but do let us know.
I'm better too much Troy than not enough Troy.
You're a kind person. Look at that. Charlotte Hamilton says, hey, it's the nicest guy in the biz.
And me.
And it says, and Owen, the other nicest guy in the biz. That's funny. I got to be careful. Hello, Terry. Hello, Gerardo. Stan, I see. You like that? Did you like that music? Thank you so much. Hello, you sound good this week. Thank you. That's Guinevere says, we sound good.
Great.
I'm sounding great on YouTube.
We literally spent time working on the audio.
I did all day. I'm telling you, I got up early and I came into the studio. And, why are we waiting? Let's just... Here you go. It's Owen Casey Stevens on this day, Thursday. And when it's Thursday, it's ThursdAGE. It's 2 p.m. Pacific. We've got a whole host of people. I mean, Owen, I don't know if you're seeing this, but I think we've got like 1 million people.
We have more than usual, which is no shock because last week we started to talk to people about stuff in the... See, Crystal's being nice to me. I told you she couldn't do that. In the Fantasy Age Core Rulebook playtest, which has launched. So people have begun to get their playtest rules, and Troy tells me the fire hose of commentary has been turned on.
Yes, and I also want to say I will challenge your notion only in that I believe that we're just really that entertaining. I think we're seeing, sure, we did, playtest stuff, and people might be interested in that a little bit. Hello to Paris. That is awesome. Have you been to Paris?
Me?
Yeah.
No, heck no. No, the closest I've come to Paris is I once had a Paris game publisher who had a blog ask if they could translate one of my blog posts into French and how much I would charge them for that. And I believe I charged them like €1 because I felt like we should have some actual translation or a transfer of money for goods. But mostly I said, just, point back to my site, which admittedly is in English. So that's as close as I've gotten. Words of mine have been to Paris, but not me personally.
Beautiful, beautiful, very expensive city. Crystal Fraser says, I have to be nice to Owen as revenge. This is the best kind of tit for tat. I love it.
Well, I'm going to lose this war because Crystal is better at being nice to people than I am because she's such a wonderful person.
The two of you are amazing human beings, brilliant, funny, entertaining, thoughtful, and both working on great IPs, good stuff. And that's what we're talking about today. So let's shake off this. I'm talking to myself, by the way. Shake off the grime of the day, and connect with our friends. Let's see. Stan says you walked through the Paris Hotel Casino in Vegas.
I did. I totally did that. Stan was with me, so I guess maybe that's as close as I've gotten to Paris.
Greetings to you, Brian. Brian Irving. I want to say hello to somebody else that I thought I missed. I think I got everybody. Owen and Crystal are two very good reasons to follow Green Ronin. Very true, Ryan. Very, very true. So Wow.
I teased people last week that I had a specific thing that I was ready to talk to them about this week for the Fantasy Age Core rulebook, and I'm sort of doing a series of previews. The game rules are being play tested now, so anything I say is where they are currently. Obviously, that could change at any given moment, and some of my loneling subterranean allies are having a hissy fit in the background. So yeah, no, I'm sorry. It's your space too. It's okay. It's okay. Bless you. So if you hear any sneezing or digging, that's them. So we talked about the fact that there was an Envoy class, that was our fourth class that we were adding, sort of a social face class last week. And this week, I want to talk about a related subject, which may not sound related at first, and that is stunt points. In case you are new to Fantasy Age, the way Fantasy Age handles unusual, extraordinary, unpredictable events like critical hits are handled in some other games, is that you roll 3 6-sided dice each time you do something, be that any kind of test, be that an attack or a skill check or whatever. And if any 2 of those dice are the same number, so if you get any set of doubles, then one of those 3 dice, which is colored differently so you can tell, gives you stunt points. And we've got combat stunts, and we have exploration stunts, and we've got social stunts. So that same system, that same basic set of rules applies to a whole bunch of different situations. One of the things that my playtesting of the current rules did, and that has led to some of the changes in the new core rulebook, is to suggest that we needed more ways for people to access stunts reliably. And I talked about this a little last time about the fact that you could roll well, but just be the statistical outlier who never rolls doubles, so you never get stunt points.
Yeah.
And that meant that whole set of game rules was just locked off from people that didn't roll well. They never got stunt points, and there was a whole section of the game that they didn't get to. So there are 2 things that we're doing to change that up. One is that we are adding Stunt Attack. People who are familiar with Modern Age will already know roughly how a Stunt Attack works. So with a Stunt Attack, you make an attack roll against a target, just like you would if you were trying to damage them. But instead of doing health damage to them, you get 2 stunt points. And again, people familiar with Modern Age probably just gasp a little bit, because in Modern Age, you get 1 stunt point. And one of the advantages we have of doing this sort of revised version of our core rules is that we can see how useful, how effective, what's the action economy cost of doing that, and say, okay, the stunt points was a great option, but the Stunt Attack doesn't give you enough stunt points. So we can up it 1, run that through playtesting now, see how that goes. So if, for example, you want to grab someone, that is something that is normally handled with stunt points, that being able to grab someone or grab their weapon away from them, or shove them around a little bit. Those are all things that we use stunt points to handle. But that meant that you could never say, what I'm going to do here, what my intention is to shove that person back there or try and get a hold of them. You had to wait and see if it came up. So Stunt Attack doesn't do any damage by itself, although you can pick some damaging option if you have enough stunt points to do it. And your Stunt Attack can still generate stunt points. So if you happen to roll well, if you're doing a Stunt Attack and you got, hey, look, 6 stunt points, now you've got 8 to play with. So you don't ever lose the opportunity to like make a second attack or do the sorts of things you can do if you roll with stunt points. And that is one of the things we have done to open up how stunt points work. And that's super exciting for me because it's fast and it's easy. And what it can let you do depends a little bit on whether or not you get other stunt points and whether you have selected some stunts to be able to do more cheaply. Because as you go up in levels, you can either pick up class-specific stunts, or you can take regular stunts that everyone can access and lower their cost by 1 stunt point. So if you are playing a warrior and you have focused, I want to be able to do this 3 stunt point combat stunt more cheaply, I want to do it all the time, you can take it down to 2 stunt points. And then you can access that with a Stunt Attack, whereas other people can't reliably. So it's an opportunity for a character to specialize what they can pull off on a regular basis. The reason I said that this ties into the Envoy is the, in my opinion, really exciting primary power of the Envoy. And this is something that our president and the original Adventure Game Engine designer, Chris Pramus, came up with first. And that is that the core power is Coordinate. That is the thing that they get at first level that they have that no other class has. So when an envoy generates stunt points from rolling doubles, so just the normal generation of stunt points, they get one more that they get to give to another character.
Oh.
So if you're an envoy, anytime you roll stunt points, regardless of the situation, so if you're in a social situation and you gain 2 stunt points, you can say, all right, I get 2 stunt points, and I'm going to give 1 stunt point to our fighter, who I know is not specialized in social situations, but he's currently talking to the Duke. It might be useful if he could get a bonus to a roll, and we've got stunts that just flat give you roll bonuses, so you can always pick that one. Or perhaps he can try and make friends, etc. So it's an opportunity for you as the envoy that your mere presence increases the opportunity for other people to do stuff. But also with Coordinate, an envoy can make a stunt attack and take the 2 stunt points you get from that and give them to someone else. Which means if you as an envoy are in a fight and there's someone that you're having trouble damaging, maybe their armor rating is too high, or you all think it's really important that you shove him back off a cliff, but it's going to be more helpful for a strong warrior to try and do that than you can make your attack, okay, I am effectively running up and kicking him in the back of the knee. I will make the stunt attack, I will get 2 stunt points, and I will give them to the warrior, or I will potentially I will give them to a mage to help them with spell casting because I'm calling out targets or I'm telling them where things are. So all of that stuff that the social characters frequently do in combat, the sort of look out, there they are, duck. You know, if you watch the first Avengers movie, Hawkeye is standing on a building giving out orders to everyone else. That is effectively constantly coordinating. He still gets to shoot things, but he's making everyone else better through what he's bringing to the table in terms of coordination. And those 2 things by themselves really open up the entire stunt system in a way that we believe is controlled. It's not, you're not getting 6 stunt points all the time. And in the case of the envoy, either they are in fact giving up an attack or they already rolled stunt points. But those are 2 ways where stunt points will become available to more characters, and how the envoy has an impact on how everyone plays their characters. Having one envoy will assist everyone in a group without them doing stuff that duplicates what warriors or rogues or mages do.
That is pretty awesome. I thought you were going to say it was bunt points, like you just sort of. That's what I would do. Yeah.
If I did a halfling warbaker class, like I joked about last week, they would have bunt points. So the more bunt cake you made, the more bunt points you'd have.
And I haven't eaten lunch again. Hey, folks in the chat, and Owen, for people who are tuning in, we have a friend who's tuning in for the first time live. That's awesome. Good to see you, Ultimate Gabriel. Ultimately good to see you here. Everybody is sort of in varying stages of testing the information that the packet, and we've got some people who are running some stuff this Saturday. We've got people who've already run some stuff. One of the things here I am looking. So Brian says, 2 games in a row, and not one of my NPCs have generated stunt points.
0 stunt points. Yeah, and that's important when you're talking about NPCs, because some NPCs are monsters, right? And so like you might have a spider that has a special stunt. Hey, I can web someone up. That takes 2 stunt points. And that means that if you don't happen to roll stunt points as the GM, that ability never comes up. And it's a great action economy equalizer for the spider to be able to run around and bite and poison people or whatever, and just add that webbing on those roughly 1 in 4 checks where you get some stunt points. So, 1 in 12 or no. Yeah, I don't have to do the math right now. But the point is, my wife just pointed out I don't have to do the math live on TV. But with the stunt attack, NPCs can use that too. So if you really want to make things exciting, you can say, okay, it attacks this person. Oh, here's a special ability it has. I want that special ability to kick in now. It can make the stunt attack. And so all that fun stuff that the GM has that is making sure that combat is not just I hit him, he hits me, I hit him, he hits me. You can depend on when the stunt points come in randomly if you just want to do stuff when it happens and not have to think tactically. But when you want to think tactically, it's a strong option. I noted that Jeremiah McCoy on YouTube said Coordinator is the Fantasy Age equivalent of the 4E D&D Warlord. It's the Envoy in general is built to be a battlefield assistant and social master. So it does in some ways fill a very similar role to the 4E Warlord, or for that matter, the 3.5 D&D Marshal, which I was a huge fan of, and sort of sad that it is not. The Warlord is sort of the same idea redone, but it worked differently, and I liked how it worked. And so, in addition to having that ability, then as you gain levels, you will have power-ups for your stunts, where you can either pick one of the stunts that's available to everyone and make it cheaper, or we have some class-specific stunts that you can select. So there are some Envoy-specific stunts that Envoys can pick when they get a stunt power-up, which is like having stunt-powered class features. And one of the reasons we did that is it means that the GM and even the players do not have to memorize every stunt in the game, right? There's a whole set of stunts that only come up when someone selects them. And one of the reasons that that seems like it's going to be easier to deal with is while some people have said, hey, there are a lot of stunts in the game and we'd like to be able to do more things, but we don't want to have to memorize even bigger tables of stunts, is that the feedback we'd gotten from the previous version of the game is that it was not a problem for creatures to have specific stunts that only exist in that creature. So like I said, a spider might have a web that only goes off when a stunt points kick in. That should mean that players and GMs don't feel like they have to memorize every stunt of every monster. So they should feel like they don't have to memorize every stunt characters could take but haven't. And those stunts have different stunt point costs. So you could, as a player, say, okay, I'm going to take this warrior stunt that is a 1 stunt point stunt. So that is something special I can do that will happen all the time. You could also say, I don't want to have to worry about this very often. I'm going to take this 6-point stunt, and I will only worry about it when I get a bunch of stunt points. And then you can have the situation where the Envoy is saying, hey, I want them to have a good chance of doing this stunt. I get an extra stunt point this time. I'll give it to them. Now he only needs to get 5. If that warrior gets another stunt boost, he can lower the cost of his 6-point stunt to 5. And then if he got one from the Envoy, he'd only need 4. So as you go up in level, you can either get more things you can do on a regular basis, or be more likely to do the things you've selected that only occur with a large stunt point expenditure, which should give a good deal of flexibility on character build without having the sort of really fiddly, I can't take this stunt until I meet the following 4 prerequisites, so I've got to plan it out from character level 2nd, and I won't get it until I'm 15th. That's the sort of thing we're trying to avoid. We want stunts to be useful and effective as soon as you can pick them. And of course, these stunts that need more stunt points, those abilities are more potent.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to draw our attention to the chat here. I'm going to say hello to Wickus. Better late than not at all, my friend. And did I say shit? I have a career-long affliction with saying things like, hey, don't forget to grab a bunch of screen shits. What I mean to say is screenshots. That is, it's not an errata shit, because that's just weird. To answer some questions real quick. So we've got Jason Riffle asks, is the playtest open or closed? I would say it's sort of clopen. Right?
What it is it's opt-in. You can send an email to letsplay@greenrenine.com.
We're changing
and say,
that.
Hey,
I dropped a link in there for people to go right to the form. So you get in there and you fill that out. We'll be sure to. You can also send an email too. I mean, I like to get email. I like to be important. But to answer real quickly, Brian Irving's question, quick question, Troy. I did sign up and return the form, but I haven't had anything to playtest. Is that something I should be worried about yet? No. Right after this, my intention was to kind of put a little pause. We did that first push of quite a few people, and we'll do the next push after this, but I kind of like to do them in big batches.
So we will get to you. If you
yes.
haven't in a few days, then, poke us. So I want to grab some questions off of YouTube at the moment.
Go for it.
Rain LeBeau says, my household finds it a little odd how many battle abilities the Envoy gets if it's supposed to be a social class. So it is supposed to be an interaction class. Part of what happens in Fantasy Age is combat. So we want them to have combat relevant abilities, because otherwise in a fight, you're not having any fun. And other people may be saying, well, why'd you have to pick an envoy? Because we're fighting all the time. So um, they've got another ability called Dazzle, which allows them to, as a minor action, if your attack and your communication is greater than their willpower, you get a +1 bonus to defense, because you are doing that snappy patter, throw them off. Whether that's a cutting remark, or you're doing a at random trick, or you're just bluffing them, whatever it is, you can do something that makes you a little harder to hurt. But that's still an action, and there are actions that allow you to increase your defense regardless of your class in the regular combat section. Most of the rest of their abilities are, and you could say that coordinate is combat related, but it's about helping other people in combat. Then the rest of what they have are things with specializations and talents, and getting specialty stunts. And those are all places where you will customize your character somewhat. But if you look at, for example, what the Envoy's primary abilities are, right? Their communication, fighting, intelligence, and willpower. Fighting is in there because it's a dangerous, violent world. And the Envoy, one of the things you ought to be able to do with an Envoy is play, say, a sergeant or a squad leader, or the grizzled veteran who's used to running around with people. But everything else they have, communication, intelligence, and willpower, that is a primary ability, tends not to be combat related, although their communication can be. And again, some of that is so that if a person playing a Envoy has gotten a high communication score because we tell them it's a primary ability, that comes up in combat so that they have some benefit for having that high communication. That also means that when you're looking at talents and specializations and such, you've got this good communication score, so you will naturally gravitate towards things that will benefit from it. But we don't want to force you to have to do it. So the rogue also has a large number of combat abilities to start being our stealth, deception, sniper type character. So we don't want the Envoy to have to be a non-combatant, although you could build a Envoy who simply expects to make stunt attacks for other people all the time. So you really could, if you wanted to, make an Envoy that never damaged anyone, but was just always wandering around and assisting people in combat.
I gotcha. Yeah, we've got some... Wow, I do want to say again, thank you for everybody who's tuning in. Thank you for the great questions, but we've got quite a few people. That is exciting to see. Quick question for you, Owen. As we look to the future, I think we kind of said, if I'm recalling correctly, we said right around the 15th is when we're going to kind of send out that survey to kind of collect some. Yeah.
That first you have played for a bit now survey, as opposed to just a hey, what are your first impressions kind of question.
Right. Yeah. So what we'll do, we'll send out a little survey with this final batch so that you can share some of your immediate concerns, things that aren't necessarily about errors or like typos. We'll capture that in the. I shared with them a link to the Weird Hunters Society form, and it's basically if you find some weird in the game, like you feel like it's if you find you're playing and you're like that's I don't know how I'm supposed to take a screenshot, you would include that, and we would and you want to be as real clear as possible. Make sure you got all the details in there and let us know who you are so we can credit if you find something amazing or deny.
I mean, if you're looking at the playtest document and you're wondering why the L in the word level is lowercase in all of the class headers, feel free to point that out to us. I like to believe that we would, in fact, successfully catch that one on our own.
It's already done, yeah.
Right. But, I mean, we wanted to get this in a readable format, and I'm super impressed with the job that our co-owner and layout guru, Hal, did with this book, because this is a playtest document, right? This exists so that we can get your feedback. And
yeah,
I just wanted to not have to give people, my cramped Word docs. And he was like, well, I'll make it look nice. And to me, this is much more than look nice, right? I have paid money for games that don't look as nice as this core rulebook playtest
Real
document.
quickly,
But
too-
if you
go
find
ahead.
stuff in there, by all means, let us know.
Yeah, and the other thing as well is this is an organic process. We want the playtests to be able to roll out without being rushed, so you can enjoy them and kind of gather your people together and do your thing. So if you don't get all of your folks together by the 15th, you'll still have all the stuff. For me and for Owen, we just want to make sure you know what the kind of the next heartbeats are going to be. Between now and the 15th, I'll send out something that's sort of like, what are your initial impressions? I think that there are people who are kind of processing some stuff and figuring it out. I'll tell you, there's a place, it's a magical place, and I've been hanging out there and reading what people have been talking about and seeing their excitement and enthusiasm and the intellectual commitment that they're making to sort of the underpinnings and the design intention behind the work that you've done. And that is, it's great to watch. And I want to invite anybody, you should be coming and hanging out here anyway, but folks are who are interested in kind of getting into that discussion about how, kind of getting into the weeds and having some fun with it. You want to join us on the Grad Discord server. There's a channel dedicated to this. And Rain says, my household has many thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. I'd imagine so. This particular, I think, we that's one of the things we love about tabletop role-play gamers is that they're a little more invested, a little more into that, the mechanisms of it all, which is fantastic. But there are also, differing opinions, and so it'll be interesting to kind of see how each household falls and how they kind of share that stuff. But we got some great questions in here. Owen, did you want to pick some of these? I don't want to inadvertently pick a question that will flap you.
Yeah, well, that strikes me as unlikely.
I agreed.
But yeah, let's take some questions since people are being so kind as to come here. Someone said regarding ancestries, Randy Hurlbert. Regarding ancestries, could there be some defining ability for each ancestry other than Darksight? I'd love to see Darksight pretty much go away. So I got good news and I got bad news. The bad news is Darksight isn't going away. Darksight is a super common ability in fiction, and it is popular with players. And if you want to play a game that doesn't run a game where Darksight isn't a thing, by all means, give them something else. But we are going to have some defining features that aren't Darksight. At the same time, some things that were defining features are now benefits that you can select when building your character. So, for example, no ancestry now has a built-in increase to any of your ability scores. And that's because really, when we're doing the built-in stuff, we're trying to stick with stuff that is kind of essentialist. So we do, for example, at Drac from the Companion, which are a humanoid dragon species. They do have pick one of the following ability focuses: strength, intimidation, or willpower, self-discipline. So there we are saying that at their essential core, all Drac are either intimidating to look at or particularly strong at resisting mental influence. That's what those two focuses mean. But we don't say that your actual strength or willpower is adjusted. Now, those are things you can pick from the benefit list, but we are not saying that anything causes this ancestry to automatically be stronger or automatically be smarter than anyone else. We are saying there are some trends, and those trends can be represented by selecting those benefits, but you're still going to be in the same range as someone else who's picked a different set of ability scores and of benefits. So instead of randomly rolling benefits, although that is still an option, we now normally say select one or two additional benefits from a table. So if you're playing a Drac, you'll go, okay, I get one of these ability focuses. I automatically get magic resistance, and we defined how that works. I got to set speed. I can speak and read Drac in the common tongue. And then I select two additional benefits from the Drac table. And that includes +1 Constitution, being armored, which gives you an increased armor rating, a new focus for Constitution stamina, a focus for Intelligence Arcane Lore, or +1 Intelligence, Darksight, which is a choice at this point. Not all Drac necessarily have it. Another focus, Intelligence for Research, or +1 Willpower, or +1 Strength. So you don't have to say, okay, my Drac is automatically stronger and tougher than any other group, right? If you want to play, my Drac is a master of communications, but is a fairly frail Drac creature. He's thin and didn't eat his Wheaties as a child. The game is set up to allow that.
I'm feeling called out, by the way.
Well, dude, I don't want to determine what kind of Drac you have to be, Troy. So,
hey, I want to back up real quick. To Joey Trapp has a question. I think it's kind of an interesting one. As more things become stunts as opposed to general capabilities, is there concern about more tests being called for when consequences or lack of consequences wouldn't otherwise call for a test?
So that's a great question. A couple of things to address it. First of all, it is not necessarily that we're taking things that weren't stunts and turning them into stunts. So each of the classes still has some abilities that aren't driven by stunts. The mage's spells, I mean, you're making a spell check anyway normally, but we're not adding new abilities that are replacing old things that the mage could do. What we're trying to do is create more variety, especially for upper level play. One of the common pieces of feedback from the game being out is that upper level play was balanced. Things won when we expected them to win and lost when we expected them to lose, but it got boring, same, and took too long. It was too much of a grind. So we have adjusted things in a way to allow people to do more damage under set circumstances as they get into higher level without having to burn stunt points to do it, to have more specializations and other options to give them more baseline abilities. And again, with specialization, those may well not be stunt related. Some of them are. And also to get these stunt upgrades so that you can either expand yourself to being able to do newer things or not. But most of those powers don't call for a role that did not previously exist. And then we are further clarifying some general rules that weren't ever explicit in the original game, like, unless we say otherwise, if a stunt causes a new roll, that new roll does not generate stunt points. If a new roll that is only occurring because a stunt happened does generate stunt point, then that's the exception. We call that out. And there are simple rolls, which are things so fast and basic that they don't generate stunt points. So if you're, I want to see if I can make an omelet this morning, normally no roll would be required for that at all. If for some reason a very basic roll was required just to see if you could make omelets under this circumstance, that's probably a basic roll. And it's only if you're saying, I want to make an omelet while pretending to be the cook so that I can sneak some poison into it so that I can kill the king. That's when you start to have the sort of consequential roll that stunts can be generated from. And so we've got some basic rules on that. I do not believe that we are going to cause stunt points to be randomly rolled more often or to require rolls that are going to slow down the game. That's in fact exactly sort of what we're trying to move away from, which does not mean that we might not be wrong, which is why we're having a playtest right now.
Right.
But my hope is that what will happen is that there will be more interesting choices, but that those choices will be easier to make, and that we've done some default choices. So if you're like, well, I don't know what I should want to do here, there are a couple of things that we've added where, like, when in doubt, you can just select this stunt and move forward.
Now, Owen, I know you touched on ancestries and some of the changes there. Crystal had a question. Are any going away? Are we adding any new ones? Is that a...
That's a great question. So none are going away. Some of how we have presented them in the past is going away. We didn't really have a strong default setting for Fantasy Age originally, not in the basic rule book. So there's some talk about Freeport, and of course we'd already put out Titan's Grave at that point. So there were some things that people could assume we were using, but we didn't say this is our base setting, this is where our assumptions come from. And we are doing that now. There's going to be a base setting, which we're not ready to talk about, but there's going to be a basic setting and a starting adventure and a chapter describing our basic setting. And if you still want to use this for Freeport, you are more than welcome to do that. And you'll be able to get to Freeport from where we're starting you, but we're not starting you in Freeport. We're not starting you in Titan's Grave. We're starting in a place that we think we can craft from the ground up to be a better starting experience for people with new characters.
Now, Stan and Crystal...
As a result...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
As a result, for example, we are not describing the orcs that we described in the basic rule book. The core rulebook orcs have a different presentation of what they are like, who they are, how people react to them, what they think. That is also true for Drac. And there are some ancestries we're adding, at least part of, from the Fantasy Age companion. So we've added some beast folk. We haven't added all the beast folk, but we've got basically rodent slash Leporidae, or i.e. rabbit species, or feline Hesperidae, which are your cats and your mongoose, and then canine supine, which are your dogs, foxes, and wolves. So we've got 3 sets of beast folk, and we're adding Drac, and we're adding goblins. Some people are aware that I have a soft spot for goblins, and I'm the developer, so I added goblins to the game.
I love it. So I think Crystal and Stan sort of blew the big secret, and that is that you'll be starting, in a kitchen, and you'll be the omelet mancer, and you will be an assassin chef.
And now someone's saying I want a PDF with egg and cheese stunts for omelet mancers. Yeah, that's Stan.
Yeah.
So your death will be delicious. I don't promise omelet mancy, but no kidding, folks. One of the things I picked up, this is a bit of wisdom I actually got from Eric Mona, even before I worked at Paizo, and that is that his basic business plan is make things people want and trade it to them for money. And that sounds super basic, but you would be surprised how many game companies I've been involved with where they don't start with make things people want and trade it to them for money. So I like that as a business plan. So if people end up really on more than one stream saying, hey, we want omelet mancers and you start a kitchen-based adventure, I'll make that happen. If there's a hue and a cry and it is more than a flash in the pan, I can totally do that.
I need an omelet mancer right now because I'm starving. But one thing I want to touch on, a couple things. I want to say, hey, Rain, I really appreciate your Rain's in it. Rain is right here in the thick of it, and I really appreciate kind of seeing that unfold and seeing the things that Rain sort of uncovered as they've connected with, they're often speaking to some issues before, in the zeitgeist of what we're talking about, which is really nice. But the other thing is, I'm glad we're moving away from the I agree with Rain. Rain's like, I think it was orcs or, like a tough and dumb, like it's just good to kind of be fleshing that stuff out a little bit.
There are 2 at least good reasons to do it. One is that a lot of that thinking has become associated with extremely odious real world philosophies, and I do not wish to be associated with or support real world odious philosophies. The other is that when 3rd edition D&D came out, I was super excited that my half orc could have a high intelligence and be an awesome wizard. And it was a weird backstory compared to how most people were playing their half orcs. But if that was the character that excited me, I wanted that character to be an option for people. So that's another reason to do it, is that the less we say these are the hard-coded important numbers that affect a huge part of your game, the more we're saying you get to play the character you want.
So we've got some other questions. I want to kind of grab them because go ahead.
I wanted to grab one real quick.
Holy
Acorn asked, will the 2nd edition be compatible with supplements from the 1st edition, such as the Companion, Titan's Graves, etc.? And I'll say this every session if I need to. The Fantasy Age core rulebook, which will replace the Fantasy Age basic rulebook, is not a new edition. It is a new core rulebook. And the goal, and I've got playtesters looking at it right now, the goal is for it to work 100% with existing material. So we do not expect to have to replace the bestiary and replace layers and replace Titan's Grave. What we're trying to do is give you a better version of the game you've already got. And while we are making changes, like the stunt attack is a new maneuver that exists, we can add that. And because any character, any NPC can use a stunt attack and it ties to stunt points and stunts already exist, all of that material, even old adventures, should work perfectly with the new rulebook. I am not interested in invalidating your current collection of Fantasy Age material. I am not interested in making us have to go back over exactly the same stuff again and again and again because we have tweaked too much. What I want to do is give you a better version of the game you've got that is a bigger book, that has some emergent behavior that we have observed in it, that some of the stuff we learned from Modern Age, some of the stuff that we've learned from other developers who are, brilliant people that's doing a lot of stuff. So it is not a new edition. It's a new core rule book that you'll be able to just take your basic rule book, put it in the back of your collection, slide in your core rule book. And we're even adding in some of the stuff from the Fantasy Age Companion, like all the Arcana are in, some of the races are in, but there's also stuff where we're not just mushing those two books together. We're taking what we think are the best parts of that book for a core and adding them to this, and then we will have more supplemental material, possibly including cookery-based magic later.
Oh, I love it. I'm getting a real yes and vibe from all of this, like just really sort of removing some of the restrictions and allowing people to kind of do what they need to do. And then just like Terry says, yes, less restrictions, more possibilities. So it's like this yes and kind of opportunity. I really like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have a section that talks about, hey, what if you are from a ancestry with multiple different heritages? So what if you want to play a elf who was raised by dwarves? You're an elf parent, but you were raised in a dwarf background. And we say, well, here's how you can say, all right, my elf was raised by dwarves, and as a result, I pick one dwarven benefit that is from my exposure to their culture and their background, and they're raising me as a child. Or you could decide, I really liked the Hobbit movies. I think the idea of someone that had one elf and one dwarf as parents is a cool idea. I want my character to be that. Same rules work. And it's simple, but it allows you to say, I want to blend these sets of options. Here's a simple way to do it. And we're not telling you that it has to be genetic. We're not telling you that it can only be these combinations. If what you want is a Drac beast folk who is, part bunny folk, because you want the bunny person with the crocodile tail and the Godzilla like spines running down your back.
Dragon
if that's
bunny?
what you want to play, we want you to have an easy way of doing that.
I love it. Hey, I just want to say to Forrest, nice try, sir. Don't get your modern age in our fantasy age. No, I'm just kidding. We won't have an answer to that, but we can run it up the flagpole and see that. But Gerardo has some good stuff too, which I think is. There we go. So, and about defense advancements, we think that it will affect the existing content. So we were wondering about that specific topic as well.
So the defense advancements, are designed as written for player characters. A GM would not have to give defense advancements to monsters. So our expectation is that the game will play just fine without adding the defense advancements to anyone that doesn't have it. And then when we make new monsters or NPCs, if we give them defense advancements, we will be doing that keeping in mind how the new game plays to make sure that we don't just create the same problem over where suddenly the game grinds to a halt. So it's not necessary to add those to any existing entries in order for the game to play as intended.
We have a note from our friend in Paris. They asked, do you think it is possible to include grapple stunts from mage to phage, even if brawling focus is not under the same ability?
It is absolutely something that if you and your group want to do after you've got the new core rulebook, you could do 100%. One of the things I really like about working with the age system is that we are able to, and we've got a product coming out before the core rulebook comes out, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure this was backwards compatible, because I did not want to release a new product and tell people, here's a new product, which you can only use for the next 6 months. We've got a new product coming out, which will show how we can add and remove stuff to the basic core fantasy age rules for different settings. And that's exactly the sort of thing that you I got to talk about Crystal here in a second.
Yeah.
That is some of the stuff that you as a GM can absolutely do. If there's something you really like in Blue Rose, if there's something you really like in Modern Age, yes, it should be possible to take those up and port them back and just think about how you want that to work. And the fact that we have presented things like, hey, here's a way to select new stunts as a class. One of the things you could do is say, okay, these stunts are now available for the warrior, or they're available for everyone. These are things you can pick if you want.
I'm going
Crystal
crazy.
Specifically said, wait, rodent beast folk? I can make a capybara. Yeah, rodent beast folk are 100%.
They're my favorite. And then quokka folk.
Yep.
Then
Quokka folk.
Jerboa monks. I want to go to there. Quackofolk would be so cute.
It used to be that if you wanted to play anything except maybe a knoll that looked like any animal dash folk, you were mocked as being an anime weeaboo. So two things. First of all, it turns out there's a lot of anime that is based on D&D, and as a result, there's some D&D that's based on anime. And as a result, those people have been brought more into the mainstream as concepts. We're not going to force you to do it, but yeah, if you want a rat with a ranseur, as Liz Courts just said, we want you to have that option to play. And there are a lot of settings that have a lot of anthropomorphic animals as their baseline. And it turns out that anime weeaboo's money spends. So I am perfectly happy to say, if what you are super excited about is having a bunny-eared archer who happens to be able to pick up just a little bit of magic while otherwise shooting people from 5 million feet away because that's your favorite character from Final Fantasy, we want to give you the tools to be able to do that.
I love that. So Evan says Bunzilla. Absolutely, 100%. Evan also brought up something a little earlier that I think we might want to just, sort of meditate on. We might want to engage in sort of visualizing the possibilities of the new material being presented in a graphic novel format featuring all Stan cartoons. So, yeah.
I got to tell you, I would love that. I have a post on my blog, owenkcstevens.com, called Why Game Company Isn't Doing the Thing. And so until we have an announcement, anytime you're wondering why we're not doing a thing, you can go read that and it will give you some good background basic answers. If we did a graphic novel at Green Ronin, I would expect us to hit Mutants and Masterminds first. I don't know that that is going to happen. That's not my department in any regard, but certainly one thinks that there would be a good deal of overlap in the fan base there. When it comes to questions, I mean, I'm happy for people to ask me questions here on ThursdAGE about other lines, right? Can we expect a Modern Age update? I don't know. If it makes sense, we'll probably go for it. If it doesn't, we won't. We've got information, obviously, that fans don't. But at the same time, when we are rolling out a new big core rulebook, because core rulebooks are super important to the industry. The core rulebook business is a great business to be in. The core rulebook is how people first learn a game. It's the thing that we want them to reach for the most. It's core. So when we are doing a run-up towards a core and we're running a playtest for a core, that is exactly the time that we don't want to be talking about other similar lines that do not have a imminent release or news of that kind, because we're trying to focus people on the thing that we will have, that we hope you will like, that we want to trade you for money. So if we sound sometimes like we're being mysterious or we don't like answering questions, there's a reason that we want to stay on message, honestly. And the more, and this is inside baseball, I probably shouldn't even get into this, but I'm going to anyway.
People love this, yeah.
When we release a book, the more copies of that book we can sell, the more money we can make on it, even per unit. So if we're going to sell 4,000 copies of a book, that is not as good for us as selling 6,000 copies, and it's not as good on a per book basis. So when we try and focus people excitement, part of that is we are trying to pay all of the creators reasonably while keeping the price at a good price point for our customers. Mm-hmm. And it's a song and a dance, but there really is a reason for your benefit that we want to say, hey, focus on this so that when we do eventually open pre-orders, so that the people you've talked to, the friends and fans, they will give us a good idea what we should print so that we can make the most per, so that we will have the resources to go and do these other projects. Resources have to go into a project before we come out of them, even if you're doing a crowdfunding campaign, right? At this point, no one launches a crowdfunding campaign without a bunch of the work being done, or at least most people don't, and most people shouldn't, which means we have to have spare resources to be able to even try to do these things. And that's just part of the business end of it. And this is how we try and make that business end interesting and exciting and work with what you want.
So I have an idea, in the short term, what if we did like a fantasy age calendar, and like it was like, Pika with a pike and rat with a ranseur and a capybara with a, what was that one? Capybara with a cudgel.
Yeah. If only I knew someone in charge of marketing at Green Ronin who could see if they wanted to get that off the ground.
How fun would that be? I'm kind of thinking
Yeah.
about it for real. That's great. So there are some other great questions here that I want to. Bill brings up something I think that sounds to me like an important thing to kind of bring up to assuage any potential concerns, and that is hopefully we'll have fewer than 3 races with Dex as their characteristic bonus.
So we have looked at what the balance of abilities and races and outpoint is. We don't have a universal applies to everything version of dexterity, right? So dexterity is useful, but accuracy pulls that out. But also, all of our races now have all of their attributes as things you can pick as a benefit. So you don't have to take it, which means that you're only going to have those high dexterity characters for where dexterity, as opposed to accuracy, or, you know, some of our races have different built-in speeds, for example, even though that's built on dexterity. So even if we've got a bunch that has it, it has a different place in the game now than it did in the basic rulebook.
Gotcha. So let's see here. I want to jump back to our friend in Paris. Are you planning to have the gritty pulp cinematic options in the new Fantasy Age, like in Mage?
That's not something we're currently playtesting. And I don't think I'm putting that in the core rulebook. The core rulebook is not set in stone yet. Obviously, we're playtesting, so we might be able to. But honestly, Modern Age is trying to emulate a bigger range of different genres. And a few weeks ago, I talked about why I thought fantasy for RPGs was more popular than modern or sci-fi, and it was the fact that different genres integrate more easily. Every time you add a new option, you are adding a cognitive load to the players. So you're saying you may or may not need to know this rule based on what your GM does, as opposed to based on what you choose, right? When we have player choices, like more specializations, if you don't take a specialization as a player, you don't need to worry about it. If no one has a specialization as a GM, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to think, is this specialization something I'm basing my campaign on? When you have alternate rules, like, do we have a gritty version? Both you have to have that additional cognitive load, that one more thing to think about for players to get into the game, for the GM to get into the game, and you have to worry about how every system in the game interacts with that new rule set. So Modern Age does that brilliantly with their gritty rules. I have looked at the Death and Dying rules. I have currently made some changes to them, but not necessarily to make them grittier, because I don't already, when you're knocked unconscious or killed, you already don't get to play while you're unconscious or killed, and that's not a ton of fun. So I don't want to penalize you multiple times by making it more and more likely that you don't get to have fun in your game. There have to be consequences, there has to be risk, but where we want to balance that as the baseline is what will be in the core. Now, if we then later decide that we are going to do Swords of the Iron Age, a grim and gritty, in the darkness of the past there is only single combat setting, then we could say, hey, here's a new option that we're taking, that we're putting into this setting to adjust how this game plays, and you will already hopefully understand the core rules, so that cognitive load is not at the same time. It'll be something addition to change things up. That said, again, one of the things I really like about the Age system is that if there's something you like from Modern Age, if there's something that you like from Blue Rose, or even the Expanse, if you're super excited by the Churn, whatever, those are things that you can, as a GM or as a group, port into your game to adjust it, and it will go pretty smoothly.
I've got something that I want to show. I actually, Stan is just, is just amazing, and so
we now have 2 cartoons from Stan.
We do indeed. I'm going to be adding. There we go. Let me pull that up. But then the other thing I wanted to bring up is I appreciated Forrest mentioning that they appreciate the pricing structure, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of thoughtfulness that goes into that, and there's a lot of making fun affordable and not gouging people and trying to I think it's and it's an important piece of the biz. Let's see here. This looks so good. He's really got you down, my friend.
Stan has lampooned is too harsh a word, cartoonified me multiple times, and honestly, I think he makes me look really good as a cartoon, so I appreciate it.
I love it. Okay, let's transition and take a look at that. Can all y'all see that? I love it. I agree with you. Ultimate Gabriel says, I agree, the cognitive load thing. It's one of the joys of watching industry luminaries talk about developing games, and you get to be able to sort of step in their perspective and sort of see what the design intention is and really how much thought goes into making it fun, but with enough friction, but not too much. And, but I love this. So now, did I miss a reference to Santa as the envoy?
Well, just that Santa is that is the character who's wandering around giving people things like stunt points.
That's right. Okay,
those
gotcha.
those boxes are marked 2 stunt points.
I smell you now. And then little Bunzilla. That's so cute. I love it. Everybody gets to play. I love it. Nicole is, of course, a big fan of Bunzilla. And
seriously, I mean, one of the best role-playing campaigns I ever had was a long time ago with a woman who thought she wasn't smart enough to play role-playing games. So we created literally a coin flip RPG, and she just played a bunny who was like the man with no name from the Clint Eastwood novels or movies, and wandered around doing stuff. And she approached everything really differently than I expected. And we had a lot of fun playing that game with her, and she got turned on to RPGs. But that cognitive load was the reason why when she had cracked open, and I think that she said the one RPG book she'd ever looked at was Rollmaster. And certainly Rollmaster has a cognitive load to it.
Right.
And there are people that love that. I'm not here to say anyone's fun is wrong, bad fun. But I do want to make sure that the weight of that cognitive load is justified by the improvement to the gaming experience it brings.
Yeah, and that is that to me is really important. And how people get to the table sometimes can be a little fraught, and math and all of that stuff. That cognitive load stuff, I think, is just really a very thoughtful and interesting view into your process. Let's see here. Holy smokes, it's 2:57.
Yeah, we're pretty close to time. If anyone has last questions.
What do you think?
Otherwise,
give us the question. We can do this like 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours.
I can't do it 3 hours today, folks. I got my first Moderna vaccine shot, and I am exhausted, and my arm feels like it's been punched 5 times, but it's totally worth it.
Yes.
Remember that if you have a question that we didn't get to or that you want us to get to next time, you can always send those to letsplay@greenronin.com.
Yep.
I don't think many people have done that, but you are always welcome to.
Oh, we've got a lot. Yeah, we got a lot of.
We want a community, and we want to get to your questions. So if we don't get it, shoot it to us.
Oh, and a question for you. As we near sort of this critical mass of people who are testing, there is just this roiling, bubbling, boiling group that are having conversations over on the grad server, which is our community community-run mutants mass rights, Green Ronin supported. I'm got confused with the Pooks Discord, but what do you think about joining them for getting some of their initial reactions, and then maybe joining for like a text chat?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely something we should set up. 100%.
Excellent. So we'll do that, and we'll actually, so folks who are in that channel, and I do believe it is ThursdAGE Playtest, but the link that I will drop again will get you there, and, come in, say hello, connect with everybody. Joey says, hello from grad. Yep. One of the moderators and one of the people that keeps things keeping on. And
yeah, I hope to have the time to just drop in from time to time, but we could also set up a specific time I'll be there and warn people in advance.
That's sort of what I'm thinking. Just to keep it, to keep it real. Keep it high, keep it tight.
Keep it imaginary.
Keep it imaginary.
It's a role-playing game.
Yeah, that's right. I have another.
Keeping it fictional.
Keeping it fictional, but not frictional.
Well, not if done properly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know.
We'll have a GMing section in the book. We're not playtesting it, but we will have one in the book.
I want to show this off. The rabbit with no name.
Yeah. Stan literally did art of that character.
I dig it.
And that was super early in my RPG career, and it was really formative for me that here was this person who's clearly sharp as a whip, who somehow had run into a group that had convinced her she was not smart enough to play RPGs. And that's I don't want that to happen as much as I can make that not happen.
You know, and I think that that's an important thing to sort of, as we are at our, we're at the end of this particular conversation, and yet the beginning of a really energetic, positive experience. As you're going through all of this, there's a few things that, you know, I believe is it Stephanie, our friend from Paris, and forgive me if I'm butchering your name, but this is what I really love. Promise we will be wise and cheerful. Literally the most beautifully, succinctly put, thought. I was getting, to that point. I was searching for it. When I saw it, I was like, that's it. We want to build a community where people are connected and they're learning and they're engaged, and get in the weeds as much as you want. Get in there and be intellectual, kind of intellectually slice and dice all of this stuff, remembering that there are people, and remembering that there are this is supposed to be fun. And so let's be wise. Let's be cheerful. I love that. I will get that on a T-shirt. Absolutely. And then Crystal says, and now you can play the rabbit with no name
in Fantasy Age.
In Fantasy Age. I'm still trying to think of what my capybara character is going to be. I do not know yet, but it will be. Owen, we're going to let you go. You're going to rest up, and then we will
set up for a fireside chat on Discord at some point.
Heck yes, sometime between this time and a date in the future.
Yeah.
Owen, thank you so much. I want to thank every single person in the chat that has shared great questions. I want to thank everybody over on the grad server. I want to thank folks who are patiently waiting to be engaged and get involved. We will be back next Thursday, but you'll hear from us, earlier over the course of the next couple of days. And make sure that you capture that errata and throw it in that form. No need to let us know. We can, telling us once is, we don't need to hear more than once, because we're always listening. And don't forget to check out Mutants and Masterminds Monday with Crystal Frazier, Steve Kenson, myself, and then a whole crew of just, they're awesome. And they're definitely folks who are who know what Mondays are all about. And then you can check out the Mutants and Masterminds Patreon, which just put some new information up about tiers. Our tiers have been beefed up, and you can check that out by going to patreon.com/mutantsandmasterminds. Remember what Owen said. If you have any questions, you have any things that you would like to get some elaboration on, send a note to letsplay@greenronin.com. And that's it for today. Owen, have a beautiful rest of your evening.
Thank you, Troy.
All right.
Bye, folks.
Now. Bye, everyone.